Welcome back. This is Ultimate Expression Radio. I'm your host, Christopher Thompson. Here to run down UFC 162. Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. Coming to you live this Saturday, July 6th on pay-per-view.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Mixmaster Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back. Gonna run down UFC 162 for you. Gonna run down some matches first. We got Mike Pierce versus David Mitchell, Seth Basinski versus Brian Malicon, Edson Barbosa versus Rafael Oliveira, Gabriel Gonzaga versus Dave Herman. Chris Lieben returns to the cage after a suspension. He'll be taking on Andrew Craig. Break down this first fight for you. Cub Swanson versus Dennis Seaver. Seaver is 21-8. He's won 5 out of the last 6 fights. His last loss came to Cowboy Cerrone. Also has wins over George Soteropoulos, Matt Wyman, Diego Nunez, and Nam Phan. Seaver has good cardio. He's quick on the feet. Very diverse striking game. Power in the feet and also the hands. Sometimes he can become one-dimensional. Just with the striking. He's to be able to win this fight, he's got to be able to make some adjustments during the fight. If he sits there and strikes, Swanson's going to pick him apart. So I like to see him able to adjust to Swanson's game if he's going to get the victory. With Swanson, he's 19-5. He's on a 4-fight winning streak with wins over Roop, Pearson, Oliveira, and Poirier. His losses came last in 2009 and 2010 to Jose Aldo and Chad Mendez. Has been known to take a lot of damage in his fights. Cuts easy, tends to take strikes to give strikes, get into little slug outs. He's got to stay out of the slug out here. Seaver's obviously got power. Swanson is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Look for him to take it to the ground and mix it up really well. Swanson's done nothing but improve over his last fights, so I'm looking for him to take home the win. I do see this one going to the decision. See it going Swanson's favor. Get into the next match with Tim Bosch versus Mark Munoz. Mark Munoz has been out for a while, since last July. He had his loss to Chris Weidman. He got knocked out in the first round. He has won 3 of the last 4 fights, so the big question is, can he come back after healing up from the injuries and from the Weidman fight with the broken foot, battling with the depression from the loss. This is overall game and mentality coming back. If he can come back and beat Bosch in this match, is going to do a great service to him and the rest of his career. Bosch is coming off a loss to Constantinople. Bosch is 16-5. He's a good wrestler. Striking is getting better, and he's got a really good chin. He dropped down to 185 in 2011, so that helped his game more. I believe size will play a factor in the fight. Bosch can get it to the ground. I'm thinking he'll maintain the top position and execute the ground and pound. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm kind of leaning towards Bosch to get the win in this fight. Also have a matchup between former Strikeforce fighters Tim Kennedy versus Audrey Gracie. Moving on here, we have Frankie Edgar. He'll be matching up with Charles Oliveira. Oliveira, 16-3. He's fighting out of Houston and coming off a loss to Cub Swanson in his last one. He's won 2 out of his last 4 fights. He has lost to Cowboy Cerrone also. And Edgar is going to be his toughest opponent to date. So yeah, I lean towards Edgar's favor in this fight. Oliveira's going to have to make the fight his. He's going to have to slow Frankie down here. Edgar coming in at 14-4-1. He's coming off a 3-loss streak. Obviously, 2 matches against Benson Henderson and the loss from Jose Aldo at 145. Interesting, Frankie Edgar's only win is since 2009 is over Gray Maynard. The rest of it has been either draws or rematches. We just come back for 2010 with BJ Penn. Frankie's got to get back to his roots here. He got to get back to the boxing, striking, moving in and out. Also mixing up with the takedowns, executing his wrestling game, controlling the overall fight on the feet, on the ground, and up against the cage and the clinch. Got to keep Charles guessing here. I do see Frankie taking this one home and getting the win. And that sums up the co-main event. And now we're down to the main event of UFC 162. It's been a long time waiting. We're going to see how this plays out this Saturday. Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. A lot of talk here. I'll say it again. A lot of talk here with Chris Weidman. He's undefeated. He's 9-0. Lots of talk about him undefeated. I have to say that 2 or 3 times. Lots of talk about him being undefeated. People are calling him the next big thing since John Jones coming along. He also has a half-inch reach advantage on Anderson Silva. He's a big fighter. He has 5 of his 9 wins in the UFC. His biggest wins coming over Damian Maia and also Mark Munoz, his last 2 opponents, which Maia was a last-minute replacement. So you got to take that into consideration. And also Mark Munoz, he was injured in the fight. Munoz didn't look anything like the Munoz that I was used to seeing. He came out there and wanted to get into a slug match. He kept rushing in and he caught that elbow and went down, and he paid the price for it. Also GSP, he's picking Chris Weidman to win this fight. He's saying that he's going to finish Silva. And what GSP is saying, everybody is listening to that. A lot of your expert analysis is also going with Chris Weidman. Chael Sonnen going with Chris Weidman. Say I'm leaning the other way. Obviously, you guys know that. Anderson Silva, he comes in to fight at 33-4. His last loss came in 2006 to Yushin Okami. Of course, Chris Weidman being the wrestler. Everybody says Silva's best matchup is against a wrestler. That's where he's liable to get beat at. And we saw what Chael Sonnen done to Anderson Silva in his first match. He won all 5 rounds. He got submitted in the last few seconds of the last round, giving Silva the win. But you also take in consideration Dan Henderson. He was also a wrestler, and he got submitted by Anderson Silva. And I might add a healthy Anderson Silva submitted Dan Henderson in the second round. The Chael Sonnen match, we all know that Anderson talked about the rib injury, and I think if you go back and watch the fight, you can see moments in that fight where he's favoring that injury. I think that attributed to a lot of Chael Sonnen's success. It's coming off that injury. And if you look at Anderson Silva's long record here, victories include twice over Chael Sonnen, win over Stephen Bonner, Yushin Okami, Vitor Belfort, Damian Maia, Forrest Griffin, Talis Liedes, Patrick Cote, James Irvin, Dan Henderson, Rich Franklin twice, Nate Marquardt, Travis Lutter, and Chris Lieben. And that list goes on. That's all the wins since 2006. There's no doubt that Silva is dominant. My biggest question in the fight is Chris Weidman's performance. Will he come out? Will he put Silva on his back? Will he come out? Will he try and strike with him? Will he be dominant in the fight? Will he come back from adversity? All these questions and more will hopefully be answered this Saturday night at UFC 162 in Las Vegas. Keep in mind the future matchups with the Silva win may equal super fight with John Jones. Now, pending injuries or anything else, rematches with John Jones and versus Gustafsson later. So we'll see how that plays out. Next UFC card is UFC on Fox, coming up July 27th in Seattle, Washington. Headlining the card is Demetrius Johnson versus John Moraga. And co-main event, Roy McDonald versus Jake Ellenberger. So keep your eyes on that card. Also, a female match on there is Liz Carmouche versus Jessica Andrade. Also see Melvin Gillard versus Mac Danzig at 155 pounds. And Brendan Schaub versus Matt Mitrione. Be an interesting fight there. And before I make my exit here, I remind you to stay tuned to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Ultimate Expression. Also tune in to our Twitter feed at ULT Expression. That's Ultimate Expression on Twitter. You can check with us for comments about the fights during the main event. Also, we'll be doing some giveaways this weekend, so stay tuned to the Twitter feed, the Instagram page, and the Facebook page. And until next time, I'm your host, Christopher Thompson. I'm out of here.